Good morning, everybody. 4.4 topic is, it's sad. It was clearly written like 7 years ago, and they just don't do they don't do it justice. They don't do climate change justice. This topic really tends to be database heavy because it's kind of one of those things where, so this is like paper 2 we're talking about. Because what they can do is they can show you like data. So they can be like, look, here, they can show you like here's a popular question. Here's a good question that kind of showcases this. This is Antarctica, right? And so like the ice here, this, and then there's like an ice, let's make an ice sheet over here. There's an ice sheet over here. Now, this ice sheet is growing and this ice sheet is decreasing. So, if the ice on the left is increasing, this is evidence against climate change. I'm just going to write CC, okay? So then the ice growing over here is evidence for climate change. That's like one example of a database style question. Another one, this is a great link to IA. So due to climate change, we see a lot of different changes in migrating behavior. So look, also like when migrating behavior is changing. If the planet is warming, animals migrate away from the cold, right? So when it gets warm, like so dolphins and whales, where do they go? In the winter, they go north. In the winter, they go south where it's warm. And then in the summer, they go north, right, to eat. So if you think about it, if the temperature is changing, if the earth is warming, the dolphin and whales patterns change. So this is also another example. This is an example of a database question where they look at different migrating patterns of dolphins and whales and where they feed, and they show you a map of the area, blah, blah, blah. So that's another database style question. But links to IA, what's changing is when, like here's a question to ask. When flowers blossom, right? If it's warmer earlier in spring, then the seasons like change, right? So if you have an earlier start to spring, then flowers blossom earlier. So all this time stuff all this is like, so we have migrating patterns changing, we have seasonal patterns changes when flowers blossom, and trees don't blossom every year. Like if trees, right? If trees blooming, right? This is called a mast year. A mast year is when trees bloom. So if a tree blooms every year, all the squirrels, all the deer know when to eat all the nuts, and then they get all eaten. So trees are trying to trick all the squirrels and birds and deer by not blooming yearly. So some trees only bloom every couple years, and it changes to screw up with the plant, with the animals. Okay, so this is just kind of like IA and database style. This is kind of like what we expect out of 4.4. So keep that in mind. Let's dig into the content. So the first content are GHG, greenhouse gases. The two most important is CO2 and water. Now, how long does water only last in the air? About 1 week. So here's a good example. Right now, here's a real life example happening right now. Hurricane Ida in the Gulf of Mexico just got really strong, really fast, because the heating of the water in the Gulf of Mexico was really strong. Like the heating of the water over the Gulf of Mexico was hot last week, and now it affects a storm this week. So this stuff is all pretty quick, right? So water vapor and CO2 are the most significant. Okay? The other ones are methane, and I'm going to just write NOx. So NOx stands for nitrogen oxides. These are the other two. So there's 4. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 greenhouse gases. Okay, there's 4 greenhouse gases. CO2 and water are the most important. Methane and nitrogen are next. Now, some differences, right? So CO2 is more present, but not as bad as methane. Methane is a small amounts. Methane is a small amount, but is a much stronger greenhouse gas. Now there is a little TOK connection here, because if you dig into it, why do we even pick CO2 as our indicator? Like, there are a lot of greenhouse gases out there. You could debate. It is debatable whether or not carbon dioxide is the best indicator that we should be using. Now, this is something that we talk about in environmental science classes. It's not in the biology curriculum. It's just an aside. It's a TOK. It's a TOK connection. So think about that. Like, is CO2 the best indicator? But what do we have to know? Greenhouse gases: CO2, water, methane, nitrogen oxide. Okay. So now, the next thing we have to know is the impact. So the next impact is that simply what the greenhouse gas does, the greenhouse gas absorbs long wave radiation. That's what they do. So the greenhouse gases absorb long wave radiation. So each of these gases has a different ability, right? So like methane has a better ability to absorb long wave than CO2. Okay, the Earth, so this is ozone. Now, ozone really isn't in the curriculum that much, right? So the short wave gets blocked by the ozone, right? So long wave hits, and the Earth re-emits the long wave radiation. Okay? Now, the greenhouse effect is not global warming. So what happens here is, I think you've probably all seen this before. So clouds, that bounces back, that bounces back, that bounces back. And so this is called the greenhouse effect. Now, the greenhouse effect is a naturally occurring thing. It's always going on. Global warming is the rise in temperature. Okay? Global temperatures and climate patterns are influenced by concentration of greenhouse gas. That's the next one. So long wave radiation absorbed by. So long wave radiation I'm just going through the standards, right? I'm reading exactly from the syllabus. The impact of the gas depends on its ability to absorb long wave radiation and its concentration on the atmosphere. The warmed Earth emits longer wave radiation. The longer wave radiation is absorbed by greenhouse gases that retain the heat. And so there's a good thing to remember here is we have weather versus climate. This is kind of more of an environmental science thing. Weather is day to day. It is hot today. Climate is the average. It's the trend. It's the pattern, right? What is the climate of Ho Chi Minh? Well, it's the same temperature almost every day. You know, there's not much difference. There's a rainy and a dry season. You know, you go to California, California, not much different. Southern California, not much different. It's okay. You don't really have a rainy season. You don't really have any rain. It's a desert. It's the same. It gets colder in the winter. In the summer, I wear flip-flops and shirts. And in the winter, so in the summer, in LA, I wear shorts, flip-flops, and sunglasses. And then in the winter, I wear shorts, flip-flops, sunglasses, and I might put on a sweater once in a while. It does get cold. There are times where I actually might put on pants. I'll still wear pants and flip-flops before I put on actual shoes. So it might get cold for a few weeks. It might get hot for a few weeks. But it's not Northern California or like northern, farther more north. You have snow, you have winter. You don't have 4 seasons in Southern California. You have 2. You have 1 season in Southern California. It's perfect all year round. Best temperature ever. So note, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, best climate in the world. I'm not kidding. You will love it there. Okay. Next comment. There is a correlation between rising temperature since the Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution is like, I think, 1900s, right? I think 1900s, late 1800s, I think. You know, early. Okay, so Industrial Revolution, right? So we see CO2 go up and we see temperature go up. All right? Most likely what they'll do is they'll show you data. Like, so they might show you graphs. So like, it's kind of hard to like make a YouTube like this about this because I don't have them downloaded off the top of my head. But you know, they might show you a graph. They show you a graph here and they show you a graph here. And this kind of goes back to my original comment, right? In the original about it, right? This topic is an IA and it's a database question heavy thing. So like this Antarctica question where I said like ice is going up here. They might show you temperature changes. They might show you temperature of a desert or the temperature of someplace else where this place is becoming more like, this is more desert-like. This is more heat waves. This is more like Western America. There's more heat waves. There's more fires. Oh, but then in Europe, in Germany, there's flooding. So there's more rain over here. Which one's evidence for climate change? Blah blah blah. So okay. Now let's go to application and skills. So that's kind of the content. That's really all there is to it. There's not a lot of content in 4.4. So let's see here. That's the content. Okay, let's go to applications and skills. Apps and skills. So the first one is coral reefs. So CO2 in the air is dissolved. Here's the ocean, and now we have CO2 in the water. Okay, so this makes HCO3, and basically this is an acid. So when the CO2 in the air gets dissolved in the water, the pH in the water goes down, and this rising acidity of the ocean is killing the coral reefs. So the coral reefs are threatened by climate change, and the key word here is bleaching. So the coral die, they turn white, and we call that coral bleaching. Okay, another application. Correlations between temperature and CO2. That's over here. That's what I'm talking about here, right? So we have CO2's going up, temperature's going up, they're correlated. They might show you evidence. Another application, evaluating claims that human activities are not causing climate change. So they might show you evidence for and against. Okay, and that's it. That really is 4.4 in a nutshell. There's lots of stuff on your OneNote, lots of different stuff here. I'm gonna stop the video here. We will discuss more in class.